Welcome back to Elevating Your Mindset. I'm your host, Tamika Brewington, and today we're going to continue our conversation, but we're going to be taking a twist. We're going to be talking about money anxiety, and we're going to be talking about it particularly with those people who are in their 30s and beyond. We're going to be talking about our working professionals who are in their 30s and beyond. And you would think that money anxiety would not be an issue for this population because maybe they have it figured out. But that is not necessarily the case. Just because you have a stable job, a mortgage, a family, and a decent income does not mean that you don't have money anxiety. What people don't necessarily realize is that money anxiety doesn't go away. It just transforms and becomes a little bit more complex. Individuals who are a little bit older, they have a different set of circumstances in their life set, right? Their milestones look a little bit different. They have a different type of timeline that can be unspoken that they're dealing with in their life, right? They are looking at it from the perspective of we're of a certain age, we should have a home by this time frame. We should have X amount of dollars in our savings account. We have X amount of dollars in our retirement. Our student loans, if we have them, they should be paid off. We should be building up our kids' college fund. If we have kids, we should be able to take family vacations. Our lifestyle should be looking this particular way. The way that the image we should be projecting should be of one of success, and so when you're thinking about this unspoken success, it can be crippling for individuals because they are trying to subscribe to this societal norm of what everything should look like. But in reality, that may not be what their lifestyle looks like. I hear oftentimes in a lot of my clients is that I thought I should will be further along by now, or I should have this, or my life should look like this. And I'm like, who told you it should look like that? And they never have an answer for this who. Right. And so to me, that is them subscribing to this norm that society has placed on them or what they're thinking they should have done by this specific age. One of the other things that I think causes a lot of money anxiety for this particular age bracket is what I call sandwich generational stress. And it is when they have aging parents and they have growing children. So you have a double responsibility. You could have aging parents who were not necessarily degreed individuals who did not have high paying jobs where they were unable to save for their retirement. And so now they're becoming older. And so some of the responsibilities of taking care of them now that they are no longer able to work is coming to the responsibility of their adult children. And then the adult children have kids that they're trying to take care of. So now you are taking care of the medical bills or some of the lifestyle of your parents, and you're taking care of childcare or potentially college planning for your children that you're raising. And so you're stuck in the middle between taking care of two sets of things while you're still trying to live life. That can be incredibly stressful. You could have career transition and or stagnation that could cause money anxiety. You're thinking about how are you going to progress financially and professionally. If you switch careers, can you afford to switch careers? You may be stagnant in your job, wanting to try something new. But if you try something new, you may need to take a pay cut. And can you afford to take that pay cut? Can your lifestyle afford to take that pay cut? And so then you feel stuck financially because you cannot afford to take the pay cut, but you're stagnant from a professional perspective. How can you do that? There's a fear of financial failure, even when you're being successful. You could be making six figures but still feel broke. Why? Because of the fixed cost, your lifestyle inflation, unresolved scarcity mindset. You may worry about losing it all. You may worry about getting laid off, especially in the banking industry. A lot of times individuals feel the pressure of trying to perform, waiting for the next bonus, and always feeling insecure because there's always another round of layoffs around the corner. And you just don't feel comfortable in that field, but you don't see a way to get out because of the income that you're making. A lot of people can have money anxiety when they're thinking about their retirement. They have retirement panic. They often have anxiety around not having enough to save for retirement. You may avoid looking at your retirement accounts because you feel like it's too late to play catch up, or you're just unsure of how to start because you were never taught at home in your family of origin about retirement, and you never took the time to figure it out in your adulthood. And now you're like, I'm in my late 40s. I only have about 20 years to go. Can I really do this? Can I really play catch up? And so instead of trying to tackle it, you ignore it. And that causes anxiety for you. Shame and silence is one of the biggest symptoms I see in this age group. The silence, you don't talk about it. You pretend everything's fine while carrying the burden. It leads to isolation, comparison in some cases, avoidance of critical financial decisions. You're not alone in this situation. A lot of people are not talking about, are they planning for the future or what their future plans look like. You're looking at this from a perspective of being a high performing executive or a parent that's working two jobs. You have money anxiety, and it doesn't discriminate. The truth is, money anxiety doesn't mean that you fail. It just means that you are stressed and you're caring about the situation. And it means that you are ready to explore how to get healthy about that situation, but you don't know how to start, right? And so identifying that you have a problem is the first step. The second step is actually doing something about it, is understanding that you need to get a handle on that anxiety, understanding that you need to figure out what is at the source of it, figuring out the symptoms, the triggers, and then getting an action plan. So what we're getting ready to do right now is identifying your tools on how you're going to reframe this and get a hold of your money anxiety as a working adult. Okay. So in this segment, we're going to look at your money anxiety and we're going to shift those gears and reclaim your peace. Money anxiety just doesn't go away because your income grows. It fades when you shift your mindset. So now we're going to look at the practical tools and ways that you can start easing your financial stress, whether you're an executive, an entrepreneur, a parent, or a single individual while you're planning for your future. So when we're thinking about executives and high income earners, you may have the title and you may have a six-figure salary. But it doesn't mean that you don't feel insecure about your money status. And it doesn't make you feel like you cannot have money anxiety. Sometimes I have clients say that they feel like we're one crisis away from falling apart. And so when you're thinking about money anxiety from as a high earner, oftentimes they feel like their self-worth is tied into their salary. And it's not. Your identity is not hinged to your income. And so, what I like to tell my high earners is that you get a financial advisor who understands what your long term goals are, not just your portfolio, right? Because your portfolio is not who you are. And so, ultimately, what is your end game as a high earner? What is it that you want to achieve with reference to the money that you're making? And don't be afraid to talk to a therapist about the emotional cost of success, because burnout, imposter syndrome, and fear of loss is really real. Just because you're a high earner doesn't mean that there's a cost that you pay. Working 12, 14, 16 hours a week is a that incurs a cost. And so you have to make sure that if I'm going to do that, what is the end goal? And how do I want the rest of my life to be set up? An entrepreneur or a business owner. Now, that is a different set of money anxieties, because this particular person has bet on themselves, and that is powerful, but it's also a way to have money anxiety because sometimes the income is inconsistent, and that can be very scary. And so, what I like to tell those individuals is that before you bet on yourself, put yourself in a position to have a quote unquote dry season saving account where you have a dedicated fund that is 3 to 6 months of business and personal savings for those quiet months. So you can automate as much as you can, where you have your taxes, your retirement, and a small savings structure to calm your nerves. So if you are not earning what you need to earn on a monthly basis, your bills are still being paid and your savings and your retirement is still there. That way, you don't have to feel like those slow periods equate to failure. The fluctuations of entrepreneurship does not reflect you being a failure, and it does not reflect the value of you as a human being. And you have to separate the two. Recognizing that being a business owner is hard, but it also is rewarding. And so ensuring that the finances are taken care of is just one aspect of it, and making sure that you have the money to keep yourself afloat is always a good thing. Parenting, balancing it all. Raising kids in today's economy comes with your own set of financial landmines. You're saving for college, you're covering childcare, you're managing the households, and it's still expected to save for your own retirement. For me, when I'm thinking about kids and trying to balance it all, sometimes parents have this mindset of making sure that they're giving the kids everything that they didn't have. And that is a great thing to do, is to earn enough to be able to give your kids the lifestyle that you would have liked to have as a kid. But I often like to tell my parents to look at your kid and give your kid what your kid needs, right? They don't have to be in all the sports. Let them be in the sport or activity that they want to be in. Year-round sports and AAU sports year-round is a wonderful thing if that's what the kid wants to do. But the kid may only want to be in one sport. And so you're putting a financial burden on the family that you may not need to put yourself in. So take a step back and look at your kid and see what the kid is invested in, and invest in what is important to your child, and not necessarily investing in all the things because you feel like you need to invest in everything for your child to quote unquote be happy. Give yourself permission to prioritize your financial future even while you're supporting your child. Let's have a balance, because sometimes there's feast and famine in things, where we came from famine and now we're giving our kids the feast, and the kids have no concept of money. They have no concept of earning. They have no concept of what things cost. And so they are breaking the iPads. They're breaking the phones. They don't understand the value of money because we don't want them to struggle, or we don't want them to understand how hard it is to come by things, but then we're not teaching them the value of a dollar. And so we're going from one extreme to the next. And so I think that it is important to have a healthy balance, to teach them the value of money and earning things, but also to let them know that it is okay to live in abundance and to have nice things. There's nothing wrong with balance. We don't have to operate in extremes. It is really good to have family financial meetings every month, to review a budget, to openly talk about what the family goals are, and to model healthy financial behaviors for your kids. Release the guilt around not being able to do it all, to let the kids know that bills are real, and having money and talking about money is healthy. Just letting your kids know that understanding finances is normal. And let's talk about being a single professional, right? And planning for your future. If you're single, especially in midlife, you might feel like you have to do it all alone. Currently that's true. But, there's also pressure to be prepared for emergencies, retirement, and even caregiving without a backup plan. Sometimes I hear my midlife working professionals say, well, I'm just going to wait and buy a house when I get with my partner, or I'm going to wait and start saving for retirement when I get with my partner, or I'm going to do this when I get with my partner. And, that's all fine and good. But what if you get sick? Or what if if your parents suddenly get sick and you don't have a plan? You don't have any savings. Or if you don't get a partner until later in life. And so what if you're in your 50s before you get your partner and you don't have any retirement saved, or you haven't purchased a home, and a mortgage is 30 years. So in theory, you won't have paid for a house. You'll be paying for a house until you're in your 80s. That is not necessarily a good plan. So let's start thinking about having a vision plan and getting a financial planner and deciding what you want your support system to look like, and go ahead and planning for your retirement, even though you don't have a partner just yet. There's nothing wrong with having a support system and saying, this is what I want my later years to look like. And then once my partner comes along, we can join in together, and we can merge things and we can make adjustments as we need to make those adjustments, but already going ahead and preparing, because being single doesn't mean that you have to be unprepared. Not being prepared and then having a life emergency is something that does not feel good. And it is not something that I would wish upon anybody. There's power in building your future and having full autonomy. When you don't prepare, you're putting yourself in a position to fail. And just because you're single doesn't mean that you shouldn't be prepared. It is not written that the only time that you prepare is when you have a partner. So don't put yourself in a position to not be prepared just because you don't have a partner. Would it be great to prepare with a partner? Yes, but just because you don't have a partner doesn't mean that you shouldn't be prepared for whatever's going to happen in your future. When you're thinking about money anxiety, it thrives in silence and secrecy. But when you bring it to light, and when you name it and plan around it, you talk about it openly, it loses its power. So whether you're climbing the corporate ladder or building your own brand, raising a family, or charting your own solo path, you deserve to feel financially safe and mentally free from any type of money anxiety. So start small. You pick one action this week. Check your bank account without shame. Open a retirement app. One action. That's all you need to do. And then you just say, I'm not behind. I am building. You got this, and I'm right there with you. Thanks for listening to Elevating Your Mindset. If today's episode resonated with you, share it with a friend, leave us a review, give us some suggestions on anything you would like for us to talk about that we could assist you with elevating your mindset with. I am Tamika Brewington, and until the next episode, I hope you keep listening. Thanks.